Cancer Mars highlights. We want to keep the meaning of this transit close in sight because it helps us to remain more intentional about how we're approaching fated experiences that initiates further growth, enlightenment, insight. Being intentional, it allows us to align our will and our intentions with what's unfolding. There is that which is within our power and control, and there is that which is not within our power and control. This goes to the second point of water, being Scorpio. Father God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change. Grant us the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Cancer most certainly brings to the forefront family matters, especially concerning mothers and mother figures. Now, an aspect of mother figures that maybe we haven't contemplated enough are institutions, organizations, cultures that also provide a sense of emotional security, or that we seek out as a means of extracting some form of nourishment or provision of care. Understand? For example, this could be, I'm committed to a certain job or career path, and I may have realized that it's not healthy for me. I've outgrown it. Maybe it's time to go another direction or to innovate how I'm approaching this, but because I'm able to suckle resources out of it, because I'm still tied to this umbilical cord, because I'm still suckling the breast of this system or institution, I'm struggling to find the security, the fortitude, the courage to break away in order to seek greater fulfillment for myself. Codependency is a highlight here, and we can find ourselves with emotional or material codependency upon something or someone that may be an oppressive outcome for us, an unfair outcome, or simply something that we have outgrown, as I've just expressed. So, with Pluto making its progress into Aquarius, into the front door of Aquarius, new themes of transformation are certainly going to manifest very obviously into our lives. It's going to predominate where we are preoccupied. It's going to get our attention of where we're supposed to go next, what we're supposed to be doing in this timeline that we have just ascended into. Now, behind us, there could be an attachment. Emotionally, I'm struggling to see myself break away from what seems like I'm getting benefit from. Now, because this is Cancer, there's an amazing way, a mysterious way, that is going to be shown to us, if it has not already, that somewhere in the bloodline, the lineage, the family, the ancestral connection that you have, somewhere along the line, your relationship with mother or nurturers of the family line. You may have suckled a little too long or romanticized your mother, romanticized a nurturing caretaker, family member. And then we take that romanticized ideal of that person and when we seek out opportunity in relationships through the 5th or 7th house, and it gets to the 8th house where intimacy and investment, dedication and commitment is required of us, we run into something that seems very familiar, but yet awkward. Comparing this person or this situation to the ideal mother. And in comparison to the ideal mother, was it a healthy dynamic or not? How did she raise you? How did she interact with you? Was it too much or was it too little? You could decide that by reflection, but after you've decided, consider this. Have we taken that too much or that too little and made it an ideal standard for others who we would invite into our life to stand as that archetype in our life? The Cancer, the Yemeya, the nurturing breast, the loving mother, the divine feminine that has powers of healing and provision, of emotional security that we all seek for, the quiet of mind, insight that hits right home, the nurturing words, sounds, and feel that lets us know we're in a safe place, we're in a safe space to not only express ourselves, but to simply be ourselves. What happens when we make those comparisons? The man you chose is not your father. The woman you chose is not your mother, but yet we succeed the progress of the mother and father when we decide that we're going to be together. However, your relationship with the mother and the father, there's a line, morally, consciously, even instinctually, that's not crossed, of course. And you can look at the person in a noble standard that's not realistic. And because it's not realistic, you try to place that person in that noble standard. And you find that access to them intimately or deeply is inaccessible because you've idealized the mother and that person rather than the authentic identity of the person itself, not wanting to accept the whole of the self. Because you're force-fitting the image of this person in the image and likeness of the mother. And sexually, that cannot cross. So now there's problems in intimacy. And what ends up happening with that? We have these secret ideas and these secret affairs that we may or may not act upon. But that natural expression of yourself sexually, it has to go somewhere. It has to be somewhere. You can't stuff it away. You can't hide it. You can't pretend like it's not there. It's going to manifest. And if you don't give it form, it's going to take its own form subconsciously. And while you don't know it, it's standing right in front of you, but you're the one who harvested that seed, yet it found its way out through you, but you don't know how. Now you're in front of a prostitute. Now you're in front of the knucklehead down the street and you got a good man at home. Now you're cheating on your old lady with somebody who isn't half the stature or caliber of your wife. Because the other person represents the parts of yourself that you could not find yourself being authentic to. And when we can't find ourselves being authentic to the whole of ourself, that's when we harbor secrets. And we go live out in secret the part of ourselves that we did not want to accept and embrace before others. This could be secret rage, secret lust, secret addictions, secrets. And a lot of those can be found at the 12th house, as well as any conjunctions that are with the moon. Of course, this also includes 4th house in Cancer. These impulses can turn into secrets that we harbor, and we take it to someone else underground, or we take it to someone else in the dark, in the alleyway, behind the schedule, and we seek to fulfill it. While we're masquerading as an ideal fit or reflection for the righteous ideal, the noble ideal that we made of our mother or our father. Wanting to be accepted as that person, but that's not really you. At least it's not the complete you. If you have light, then surely you have a shadow. If you have goodness in you, then surely you also have evils in you. And all of them serve the good. Are we acknowledging and embracing it all? What does it really mean to be authentic? It could mean accepting the infamy within us, which is not an excuse of negligence, but acceptance that that impulse will always be there. And we have the free will to choose what form that impulse takes. Impulse taking form such as, what behaviors will that lead me to? What words and actions will I allow to be produced based on the impulse that I'm having within myself? The greater understanding that I have of this impulse of myself, the more clarity I have on how I can give it an appropriate form rather than a form that manifests regret. Understand, that is the 12th and 6th house axis. What do you have going on at the 12th and 6th house axis? Understand. So, Mars in Cancer, you see, Mars can bring up the grievances that we have based on these matters. What we're harboring. The righteousness that we pretend to be standing at. The nobility that we pretend to have that sets us apart than our neighbor, our brother or our sister. The righteousness that we want to act like we have above or apart from others. The parts of ourselves that we don't allow to be introduced with us. The secrets in our pockets. The social or societal agreement says you're not allowed to think that way or to be that way. You can't have blue hair, or you can't have a nose ring, just throwing something like that out there as an example. And we hide these things away. Now, what are some things collectively, as an example, that we all share as a common experience so that we can relate to this? One example I will give. Is it really true that men's nature is monogamous? Or are they polygynous? Is it really the case? Most certainly, one idea does not apply to all men or all women. one ideal most certainly does not apply. So what I'm proposing is not about exceptions, but consistently of what we experience. Are men polygynous or are they monogamous? Is there an accommodation in society for those who decide to be honest about who they are, how they are? If he expresses, oh, I'm not monogamous, it's not how I am, it's not who I am, it's not what I intend to be, and I don't believe or I don't feel that I will be able to fulfill that. Is there a place for him to express that and be honest about that? Of course, the burden is on himself to be truthful. But in him being truthful, where is he received? And if the social agreement has romanticized ideals of man and his nature, that does not reflect his nature, but yet his nature always prevails in the form of, oh, he cheated, or he did this, or he did that, or he looks at this girl and he wants that girl. Which one is it? His nature or a social construct of an ideal of man that could be short of what his nature really is? Which one prevails? The nature is always going to prevail. And it prevails at the most inconvenient times, in the most inconvenient ways. And we're left confused because what really is has conflict with what we want it to be. What we want it to be true is in conflict with what is true. What we want to be ideal is in conflict with what is the idea in the palette of nature. So, is he choosing to be monogamous or is he coerced into this? Does he get the girl if he says he's not? Does he get the shot if he says he's not? Everybody has different experiences. I'm sure there's a variety of answers and replies to that. Is he capable of monogamy? Yes, most certainly. Is it his nature? Arguably, questionably, it's to be known. These are the two separate distinctions that I'm making right now. And so, what has been idealized, what has been romanticized, is going to fall to what is true and authentic, is what I'm foreseeing, is what I'm prophesying of. Aquarius Pluto is going to bring the authentic nature, the authentic truth to the forefront, to the surface. Cancer Mars is presenting conflict with the culture. And the conflict of the culture is with the truth, Mars. Ogun, the god of iron, the one who descended from the hill, covered in blood and fire. Infamy, the infamy of truth. As the Christ impulse said in personification of allegorical Jesus, I come to set son against father, daughter against mother. That is Cancer. And it's the truth that's in conflict with ideals, wishes, delusion, feelings, opinions. But the truth is a different subject. The truth is no one's friend. Ogun begat fire. In him begetting fire, he begat infamy, the offense of the truth, the heat of the truth. And hot truth is anger. I don't want that to be who you are. I don't want that to be your nature. I don't want that to be the way you are. And I'm going to cling on to every argument that was ever made about it. to justify my demands upon you and your nature, although nature will always prevail. You will have a monogamous man for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years, and then one day you won't. That trend will break. Rather you know it or you don't. Who has participated in polygyny or polygamy? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Most of us have, from both ends. So what I'm pointing out is, this is coming down the pipeline. Authenticity. And what authenticity looks like is coming out as who you really are. This is the individual and this is collective. Men are going to come out as who they really are. Mars represents men. It represents men coming out as who they really are. And they're going to make conflict with the culture that is the current state and status of the culture. They're going to make conflict. There's going to be offense. There's going to be frustration. They're not going to submit anymore to feminism. They're not going to hold back anymore their opinions, their thoughts, their feelings even. They're not going to respond anymore to the shame, insult, and guilt tripping, to subdue them into behaviors, attitudes, dispositions that has them to cater to the feelings of feminists, liberals. However, if they are civilized, I would like to believe that they would always, of course, honor women. How can we be men if we don't have it in us to honor women?
Would you tell us some of the rituals which primitive societies had to break that dependency on the symbolic mother?
All the big transitions in life are in all societies have been accompanied by so-called what Genep calls rite de passage, rites of transition, to make a ritual to help people to make the step over the threshold. Now, the most famous one, which has been studied mostly by ethnologists, is the ritual of initiation, where the young men are initiated into the secrets of the tribal law and into the secrets of sexuality. And they have to leave mother and their home. They are secluded in the bush. They are symbolically devoured by a maternal monster. They are reborn. They have to generally stand a lot of tortures. They are sometimes also homosexually assaulted by the older men with the idea of injecting them masculinity. And then they are generally at the same time instructed with the secret law of the tribe and the religious traditions. And if somebody, and a young man has undergone all this ritual of transition, then he is afterwards a full member of the tribe, he's a man. And many tribes call the ones who are afraid, who are for some other reason not initiated, they say, he's not initiated, he's an animal. Meaning he has remained completely unconscious, he has remained in an unconscious animal conditions. He has not really made the step to being human.
Are there any societies where there is no rite of passage, where men remain in that state of dependency on the mother, where they stay animals?
Well, we have not many sociological matriarchies, but I read once a book about a South American Indian tribe where there was a actually sociological, not religious, but sociological matriarchy. And there, the women were happy, fat whores, ordering the men about, and the men were lean, submissive, nervous creatures who were planting the fields and doing the work for the women, kind of porters' figures. And positively wealth, the world of the drives, sexuality, earthly happiness was blossoming. And negatively, there was no spirit whatsoever. A world of total stupidity, so to speak, of only living very agreeably, but not thinking or having any ideas or spiritual realizations at all. And the men accordingly unhappy and submissive and rather poor creatures. But generally, these things balance back and forth. There will be another generation of men who will, in male protest again, put the things into a middle position, or try to put the things in a middle position. It seems to be, the ideal seems to be not that either the men dominate or the women dominate, but that there is a kind of equal relationship, a balance of opposites.
And this demon woman, this devouring mother, how does she come together in a man's unconscious in the first place?
The devouring mother on the personal level would be the fact that many women who are over caring for their children try to keep them back from life. It begins by being anxious. Don't do that, it's dangerous. Don't do that, it's dangerous. Don't go to play out with the boys. You could fall and wound, or you get hit over the head. And by trying to keep the children too much in their clutches, and then we speak of devouring mothers. And such mothers also have trouble when their sons and daughters begin to date girls or boys. They say, I'm very much wishing that you married, and I'm very glad, but that girl you bring home now, no, that is not the right girl for you, or that's not the right boy for you. So they keep the children in their clutches, but that is only the foreground of a woman who has exaggerated her maternal protective qualities. There is also an archetypal background.
When a man idealizes a woman and projects his anima onto her, he gives her tremendous power. Why is it dangerous for a woman to identify with that projection? Or like Marilyn Monroe, to become the love goddess and live out his desires?
Because, as we know from the life history of Marilyn Monroe, she did not live her own life. She acted all the time the anima of men. Generally, there are women, and that is ultimately due to the power drive. When women discover that if they are beautiful, they can exert a magic power over men, then they take to acting all the time the anima. We are even in our jargon sometimes talking about anima women. Those are women who find out how to act the anima to men. And because this is not love but pure power drive, it is destructive to the men and to themselves, because it's using the guise of love for worldly power. Such women want to rule the men. They want the men to be all at their feet, and then they naturally are unhappy because they don't feel loved. I remember when I was young, sometimes when a man projected his anima onto me and was pursuing me and giving me presents and so on, I had the distinct feeling, but that fellow doesn't know me at all. He's chasing an image. I wanted to look back. Who is he chasing? It's not me. Me as a human being he doesn't see. And so if a woman falls into the trap of acting out the anima, she can exert a tremendous power over men. But at the same time, inwardly, she's frustrated because those men love her image, they don't love her. So she's really very lonely underneath. And that's what caught up with poor Marilyn Monroe.
Cancer Mars. Men have been at conflict with the culture behind us. We're in a new world, new cultural opportunity where there's now space, room, consideration for the full expression of men authentically. Feminism is fallen. Liberalism is fallen. Conservatism is up. Divine masculine is up. He now will have accommodation for his most authentic expressions, which includes his disagreeable nature, which includes his polygynous nature, which includes his thoughts, his expressions, his opinions, his yeses, his nos, without being guilt-tripped by a cancel culture, society, system, media that wants to silence that. There's now nothing that can silence him. There's now nothing that can shame him for being himself. Everything that was behind feminists, enabling them to have this leverage, this witchcraft over the people, it's fallen. It's over. You have shows such as The View, MSNBC, CNN, all of these media platforms that control the narrative in favor of liberalism and feminism. But the chess pieces on the chessboard are being played by a perfect wisdom orchestrated through this universe. Just as we had the checkmate with Elon Musk purchasing Twitter back in 2022-23, which reopened the only platform where truth could be spoken without facing cancel culture, liberalism, feminism, being silenced, we've come back around to the same opportunity. MSNBC, up for sale. Elon Musk flirts with the idea and even emphasizes the idea. Now, what if? Just as before when he purchased it, it was during a Mars retrograde. As is being proposed now again, Elon Musk is entertaining the same idea during what? A Mars retrograde that's dawning us through Cancer. Here we are again, 2 years later. This is a significant move if it comes to pass. MSNBC, right along with many other channels, being bought out by conservative hosts, conservative management, conservative influence. When media changes conservative, when media changes red, this changes social programming, influence, the noise in the air, the ethereal. It changes it red. The ethereal is now of Mars rather than the ethereal of Venus. This is massive influence that changes the narrative. And the narrative will be favorable for the masculine. Not that it will work against the feminine. However, it stands no chance. That is, feminism stands no chance to resurvive itself. Nor does liberalism. It doesn't stand a chance. The conservative woman is up. She will be supported throughout this. And that is she who is not in a mission to swap destinies with the male, the man, men. She has her own destiny in sight. She embraces it. She shows up for it. And in her doing so, we all benefit. Oshun represents fresh waters, the feminine principle. Yemeya represents the salt waters, feminine principle. What is life without salt water from which we all come from? What is life without fresh water, of which our resources, our technology, our conveniences, our mobility depends upon? Who can be an enemy to water? But if water is an enemy to you, you have no weapon against it. That is the woman. So in particular, Yemeya raises her archetypes in the earth, the mature women, the wise women, the exemplary women. They are risen along with the sons of Ogun. Now, as this changes, those archetypes of Venus, those archetypes of Oshun and the feminine principle, there will be a shift in mind. There will be a change in mind. And that because security is the motive. I'm not secure if I'm not with the village. I'm not secure if I'm not safe within the creed, within the declarations, within the institution, within the constitution of the people. I'm not safe. She's going to notice it. She's going to feel it. And she's going to head straight into the center of what the people have agreed upon. And with the narrative being shifted, by the media being shifted, as liberal media falls and conservative media rises, she's going to change her mind, do an about face, and come right into the conservative view and perspective. Oshun's daughters too. The river channeling out into the ocean. Understand? Oshun and Yemeya. What is significant about this? When Oshun shows up, the sons of Mars, the sons of Ogun, they come out of the wilderness. Because as a traditional theology narrates, it was Oshun and only Oshun who could lure Ogun. That is Venus luring Mars. That is copper attracting iron out of dormancy, out of the wilderness. It was only Oshun who could lure Ogun out of the wilderness. So once they change their minds, once they turn around, this will bring motivation, inspiration, zeal to young men to perform, to compete, to be constructive and productive. Because now the female, the Venus, the Oshun, the young attractive female, she is now accessible to young men in society. And with her now being accessible, because feminism no longer poses a barrier between them, you are going to see a shift in the productive attitude of young men in society. Nothing will be able to stop them. Copper attracts iron out of dormancy in the body to be utilized. Understand? In the future, Aquarius Pluto, poly, it's not personal. Poly, it's not personal. If I can't be used, I'm useless. If you can't be used, you're useless. And that's not something to be offended about. It's not something to take personal. But that is the attitude of Aquarius Pluto. Aquarius Pluto, our relationships cannot be of an attached disposition. It must be of a detached disposition. If we resist this lesson, the soul of those who you are destined for are going to have to teach you that lesson. And the way that a soul teaches you that lesson is by taking actions and behaviors that prise your hand off of them, while also subjecting you to need of them at the same time. You share a common need, but yet you feel like you cannot embrace the person or naturally hold the person. But yet you're there because there's a common need, which is the ring of Saturn. And that ring of Saturn is subjecting you to something that requires your focus, attention, and concentration. Yes, you're together, but you don't own each other. You don't possess each other. And love is sweeter that way. It's truer that way. And that person is authentic that way, and you are authentic in your way. Allowing that person to be who they are as you are who you are. And it is your boundaries that preserves you from harm, injustice, or repression from any person, not control of the other person. We get to choose whether or not we want to create or co-create with the person based on their behavior or character or their beliefs even. But we don't get to control. We don't get to dictate. And if we take the higher view, we could get a glimpse of what authenticity really means. When we are authentic, something about us is going to offend other people. When somebody is authentic in our life, something about them is going to offend us because we have our expectations and impressions according to our personal ideals, and those may not always coincide or match or be harmonious even. But yet there has to be compromise, some negotiation, and possibly even forgiveness. You may have an assignment where you're destined to be part of how a person heals, and they are part of how you heal. And it is our arrogance to assume that the other person has healing to do, but you don't. The other person has something to clean up, but you don't. We could be practicing arrogance and assuming that. Yes, that person is sick and you can see it, but there may be some sickness about yourself that you can't see. And although painful and uncomfortable, you are exercising each other. The flesh is deceiving. What is in the physical form, what is in the body is deceiving. It is tricky. In the flesh, it looks like dysfunction. This person won't do this. This person won't do that. I can't get them to see this. I can't get them to see that. This person won't act right. This person won't do that. This person won't. And we find ourselves in a lesson of possibly control, self-realization, engineering our own personal infrastructure of emotional security that is not dependent upon another person's behavior, attitude, beliefs, thoughts, opinions. There's a mysterious way that what is going on within us gets clearly revealed to us on the mirror surface of the other person's character and behavior. Just because I'm hurt doesn't mean I was wronged. Just because I'm offended doesn't mean I'm oppressed. Understand, we have to make those clear differences within ourselves, not so quick to make it about the other person. Just like in twin flame dynamics, twin flame relationships, you want something to go harmonious, you want something to go right, but guess what? It's all about what you do within yourself. The runner keeps running, and you're tired of the runner running, guess what? You have to stop running from yourself. You have to turn around and show up for yourself. That's what causes that runner to turn around and seek you. You have a chaser. You have to open up, be more receptive, to what wellness could mean to you. And your wellness could be in the hands of another person at certain times if you could humble yourself. And by opening up to it, you can release the tight clutch that a person has upon you because you're being receptive. We change realities by changing the reality within, not by controlling what's without. Esoteric rather than exoteric. What is within is first. Spirit is first, and then the manifestation of that which carries density, flesh, material, physics. It is spirit first. You don't keep a person by controlling a person. Realities are coming in, but the truth always remains the same, and we get glimpses of what truth really is in portions that we can handle. Something challenging that we have ahead. Men are coming up, and it may not be believable today. It may not be believable today, but to be called by a man's name at a certain hour in the future, it's going to come to pass that there will be competition for that. One lion for a pride. And God knows how many lioness to one pride. But that could be the truth that we don't want to be true. In some cases, if he's worth something, if he's truly valuable, you more than likely will have to share him. If he's worth something and he's truly valuable, you more than likely will have to share him.
And does this woman who's playing the anima, does she just fulfill a man's needs? Anything he wants, she does, or how does it work?
It works as long as it is an adventure or a love affair. Then she fills out his needs. But when he has to live with her if he marries her and has to live with her in everyday life, then comes the trouble. She will play the anima to all the other men as well, and he'll not like that. And secondly, he'll suddenly discover that underneath that beautiful mask, there is no human being. There's no warmth. There's no possibility of a human relationship. So to marry an anima figure is most disappointing. And that these women who play that are called by the French femme fatale, women who ruin men.
If a man has this mother complex, then how does he experience women in real life?
If a man has a too close tie to his mother, then he, especially a positive one, then he tends to idealize women. He sees in every woman the Beatrice of Dante, so to speak, or the Virgin Mary. And then such men cannot approach women again with their lower parts, with sexually and in ordinary human life. Or they have a split anima situation. They admire a very unapproachable, lofty, beautiful girl from afar and satisfy their sexual desires with prostitutes and cannot bring the two ends together. They cannot put the princess and the bitch together, so to speak, in their psyche. And that is generally due to a too close tie to the mother in the man. He has to free himself from the mother. That's why, for instance, in one of the famous examples of such a princess in the tower, Rapunzel, she's imprisoned by a witch. It's the mother figure behind the scene, which brings forth the constellation. And then both lovers cannot meet on earth. And only when Rapunzel has come down on earth and he has erred around in the desert in misery and pain can they finally meet.
Some men find their devouring mother out in life, in corporations, universities.
Google AI helps you find your best customers by optimizing your campaigns in real time. Start by setting your specific goals, and Google AI will help maximize your reach across search, YouTube, display, shopping, Gmail, Maps, and more, all from a single campaign. Put Google AI to
Institutions of some kind.
I think one element of the devouring mother archetype is what one could call inertia. All big institutions have the tendency towards a certain inertia. They are not flexible. And therefore they are, so to speak, material blocks, situations which are just so. And as far as men have a mother complex, they feel, well, the universities are even were in the past called alma mater, the benevolent mother. And we see that whenever you have an institution, people tend to be infantile and to suck that institution for money, to ask for loans and stipendia, and to use them as benevolent mothers. And so the mother can easily be, the devouring mother can be easily projected onto a plant or a big organization or an institute or a university. They have even feminine names, and if in former times when one represented them, one represented the alma mater as a fat woman. And America is still represented by a fat woman holding up, at least she's holding up a light. That's making it a bit better.
But is there a light on top of that fat old woman? Everywhere I look, I see the principle of mother relatedness is breaking down. The institutions that once contained us, the church, family, marriage, even the economy, no longer provides that security. Where do you see the light?
Well, I would say through the panicky feeling of the danger of a nuclear war. For instance, you see that people, and through the suddenly realizing the problem of pollution, there has been a basic change in many, mainly the young people, but also I think already my generations was fully aware of that we will have to basically change our way of life in some way. There is still a lot of quarreling and discussing how and why and in what form and so on. But I think everybody agrees we have to find some way of peacefully live together and not destroy each other by a nuclear war. We have to deal differently with nature than we have done up till now. And we have to change our too rational mode of life. I would say that is going through. If you think of a book of Marilyn Ferguson, The Aquarian Conspiracy, you see that there is, this book only gives the absolute surface of things, the only superficial aspect, but you see that everywhere there is a parallel change of attitude, which with the German word one expresses as Zeitgeist, as spirit of the time. In history, this is well known. For instance, if you look at the art of the 13th century as compared to the Renaissance art, you see how much the spirit of the time has changed in those few hundred years. Suddenly, as if collectively the whole mankind has a different outlook. In the medieval art, everything is concentrated on the divine. There's no perspective, there's practically no landscape, there's no representation of animals, trees, and worldly things. And then in the Renaissance, suddenly this switch to discovering nature, the human body, the perspective of space and of space, the different building. Now that is only a very striking change which everybody knows in retrospect, but such a striking change seems to me to be constellated again today, and that's why naturally keenly interested intellectual people cannot avoid asking the question, what is the change of our time? What is our situation? Especially under the threat of a nuclear war, which preoccupies practically everybody's mind. There is a kind of desperate look at the sky. What does it mean to? How could we change? What is coming? What is ahead of time? This kind of anxiety is everywhere. We are still living in an age, or at the end of an age, where the opposites, Jupiter and Saturn, good and evil, spirit and instinctual physical drive, are in great opposition. We are torn apart by opposites, which in political terms would amount to any minute having a war. You have even on one side of the Iron Curtain an anti-Christian principle ruling, and on the other side, officially still a Christian outlook ruling. So the Iron Curtain is dividing Jupiter and Saturn, so to speak. That's only the earthly image of what is happening on a much deeper level in the human psyche of every individual.
Through feminism having its great influence accelerating since the 60s and 70s onset, coming to its zenith starting November 11th, 2008. Cancer Mars is when the truth, it kindles heat against what the sons of the society Mars are now disagreeing with as being the ideal archetype of woman. Through feminism, America has an overwhelming experience with single parenting and single parent households, especially single mothers raising children. And there's an attitude and behavioral pattern that has a common rhythm, common expression, harmonious expression here in America. And what has been challenging to come to grips with is young men accepting that because some of the mothers were that way, they thought it was acceptable that they would have the same treatment in women who they chose. And the crisis is that truth is wielding itself against that illusion. I don't like how this feels. I don't like how you treat me. I don't like how you dress. I don't like how you behave. And as a man, I'm just simply tired of dealing with it. This is a common post, not post as in post to the internet, but post as in position of commitment that young men have arrived at in this social climate of today in America. They're tired of the wild feminist. They're tired of the female who doesn't have values, who doesn't have morals, who has way too many bodies, hypersexual, disrespectful, lacking character and values, principles, morals, who doesn't have domestic talents, gifts, and skill sets. They're tired of dealing with it. The expenses and the burdens placed upon them at the cost of dealing with them. The sacrifices that have to be made in that, and then the character assassination that comes along with it. It's loaded with burdens, regrets, and liabilities dealing with American females. This is no news broadcast to anyone out there who's been breathing air for the past 4 or 5 years. This has been loudly expressed in our common society. Young men are tired of it. And some of them could be seeing that their mothers were one of them. And that could have been the start of them accepting certain treatment that didn't reflect a respect of their self, a value of their self, dignity, pride in their self. The isolation that young men were forced into because the dating market became full of delusion, where here in America, every female thinks they're a 10. You got to have 6 figures, 6 foot tall, 6-pack, yada, yada, yada. Don't take me here, don't take me there. Every one of them is a bad bee, a diva. You're not on my level. I know my worth. I deserve. All this rhetoric. So this led to an isolation in this generation with young men, bowing out of the dating world, the dating market, and certainly marriage plummeting, as 70% of marriages are initiated by women here in America. 90% of the 70% are college graduates. Of course, in college is where the liberal mindset is brainwashed and saturated, soaked into the mind and personality and disposition of character. So the isolation, of course, leads to the number 9 hermit card we know, through Virgo. And that is where man becomes reborn. Isis with Osiris sitting on her lap. So it may take some time for most out there to know that the man that you used to know is not the man who he is today. He is reborn. And when I say the man, I say the masculine principle of this modern time. He is a new animal, or should I say a new God. He is transformed. He is renewed. There's something now that he understands that he didn't understand before. There's something he got to see that he didn't get to see before. Through freedom and liberation, or at least the illusion of, proposed to females through feminism and liberalism, they exposed themselves. They told on themselves. They showed their hand. They revealed their true intention. They showed their true nature. They told on themselves. And the young men got to watch it. Men got to look at who they really preferred to be because they had the freedom to choose. What did they do with the freedom? What did they do with their liberty? Nobody forced them. But they put on the reputation that they chose. The reputation that I'm describing right now. The reputation that follows behind feminism and liberalism, the same reputation that caused Kamala Harris to lose miserably behind those same characteristics that she would seek and who she's going to have promote her campaign. The sex symbols, the divas, the bad bees, the feminists, the liberals, coming up to the pulpit, one dressed in a man suit, and the other one holding a hand as if to replace man altogether. Men were watching. They were watching what she's going to do with her freedom. Okay, you have freedom. What are you going to do with it? When you give somebody freedom, you get to see where their heart is really at. You get to see where their mind is really at because nobody's forcing them. You get to see what their true and sincere aims and intentions are. So females of this society, exception of the conservative woman, she exposed herself. She told on herself. She showed her true colors. That caused men to change. It transformed them. So now, as this universe brings them back up to power and authority in their divine masculine and their true authentic selves in full expression, without feminism or liberalism being empowered enough to stop them, slow them down, or punish them for being themselves, guess what? They are not going to be easily accessible as they were before, because now they're wise enough to see through the illusion of pretty. They're wise enough to see through the illusion of sexy, through the illusion of the big butt and the smile. They see through it now. They see now what's coming. They see what they really are, who they really are. They told on themselves. So man today is not who he was yesterday. Men are different. They're new. This does not apply to Pookie. This don't apply to Ray Ray, because Pookie and Ray Ray is always going to be who they are. Animals, mammals, crawling on their belly, creating mischief and trouble and imbalance and through incompetence. Not even aware of what they're creating because they have no authority. Chasers and admirers of their own lust and their own image. That's who's out there in the dating world. That's who's out there making themselves available to women. That's who's out there, not the real men. The real ones are not easily accessible because they've become wise. God gave them wisdom so that the jewels that he invests in them will not be exploited. God gave them wisdom first. God let the women show and tell on themselves first before he blessed them. Before men got blessed, he let women tell on themselves. And he made it clear that the liberal, the feminists, those are the ones, especially the more attractive ones among them. Be mindful, be wise, be watchful. Give not thy strength to a woman, be very careful. You see that pretty face, you see that sexy woman, you see trouble. You see mischief. You see something that you need to avoid. If you become wise enough to pay attention, this is what men who pay attention, this is what men see. They see trouble when they see that pretty face. When they see all that makeup and design of this and design, they see burden. They see problems, they see headaches, they see regrets, and they avoid it like the plague. This is who men are now. He's a different animal. He's not convinced that you're this innocent damsel in distress, that you're helpless, that you're so soft and helpless that somebody has to come and take care of you. No, you told on yourself because you were strong enough to try and come and take his destiny from him. And you thought you were going to succeed in taking his destiny from him. But God said, no, his destiny is his and yours is yours. And you have to fulfill yours and he has to fulfill his. So no, that's not going to happen. Sorry, try again. Man is up now. Ogun is up now. Mars is where we are now. And men will be respected and men will be honored from here on out. And there is nothing that bitter females can do about it. Men are up now. Al Bundy has awakened. Now, Mars is who's coming up, as Mars is the Lord of this new reality that we're in, this new world that we're in. Mars is the Lord of this. North Node Aries has downloaded. However, the algorithm that Mars has to operate within is according to the power dynamics of Aquarius Pluto. Aquarius Pluto, of course, We know that Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. And Uranus is Oba Shango. Oba Shango, or Uranus, he is polygynous. He is not monogamous. So what this spells out for us is that this is going to be the context of future relationships. No, I'm not going to be your devotee. No, I'm not going to be at your feet. No, I'm not going to worship you. No, I'm not going to be madly in love with you. All of these things, this is not what we're going to have. Instead, it's going to be an authentic connection and expression that doesn't include obsession and attachment to each other, domination over each other, control over each other, placing your happiness and your security in the other person. It is contractual, consensual. It is masters coming together to serve a purpose, a cause, a value that is greater than them, not making their self what is great to be worshipped and served, but the purpose that they come together upon. So the monogamous ideal is going to be challenged. And I'm not here to say that females shouldn't do it, women shouldn't do it. Every person is free to do whatever they want to do. But here's the plot twist. The plot twist is authenticity. Authenticity is where we're at. Not, I'm going to do this because they're doing it. I'm going to be this way because I see that they're doing it. We already came from that lesson. The feminism lesson of, I want his destiny because I don't like my destiny. I want to compete for his destiny because I'm dissatisfied or I don't understand my own destiny. That's not where we're going back to. So who are you supposed to be? Not looking across the table at what somebody else is doing or who somebody else is, but who are you? Are you polygynous or are you monogamous as a woman? I'm not here to answer that question. Maybe women could start doing discovery on what that really means for them. Leave that philosophy for them to answer. However, man's nature and what he's proven to be, it's going to have authorization by this universe to come out into full expression. In the last day, it is said, in the last day, 7 women will cling to 1 man. Isaiah 4, at that time, 7 women will cling tightly to 1 man and will make him this offer. We will provide our own bread. We'll provide our own clothes. Just let us marry you so we won't be stigmatized anymore. So we won't be stigmatized anymore. What this shows is that the single woman is under pressure to change her status. And she's willing to provide her own resources to carry her own weight just so that she can escape being subject to the scrutiny of the public or society as a single woman, among other details. So we're coming out of that status and we're coming to the opposite end of it, is what I'm saying, is what I'm foretelling. We're coming out of that. We're coming out of that being acceptable. We're coming out of this status being acceptable. And where we're headed, she's going to want to seek shelter from that status and reputation. Understand?